Hello everyone, welcome back. It's Empyrion Galactic Survival episode 78. I'm Enigmius and today, hooray, it's the last episode featuring this air intake vent. The exterior hull will be done, at least as far as we're going to show. I mentioned in the last episode that what we'll end up doing is we're going to focus on getting the hull complete, and then we're going to do one more aesthetic pass over the entire thing. Off camera, we're going to show you what the end result looks like, then we're going to texture it and paint it, we'll show you what that looks like, and then we'll take it out for a bit of a rip and see how it runs. I don't expect the performance to be too much of an issue. It's going to have lots of guns, it's already got lots of thrusters. We are going to need to make room for thrusters in various different places around the hull. We need lateral thrusters. For some reason, I always feel like I want to put thrusters, downward facing thrusters, in the theory that it might speed up how long it takes to descend when you're kind of hovering at a certain height. I have no idea if that's true or not. I don't invest a lot of thrusters into that, but it's just something that I feel like I should be doing. So we'll probably do that, and then of course we also need the forward-facing thrusters to help us decelerate and move backwards. Where those go, I have some ideas. It's not going to be difficult to place them. Again, it's a very large vessel. Compared to your average hover vessel, finding space for things isn't going to be an issue. And then as far as I know, with the number of forward thrusters that we have, it's not going to be an especially difficult thing for this ship to get up to speed and cruise around. So that'll be good. And then we'll go out and we'll mess up some points of interest so that we can get ready to leave this planet and probably never come back. If we do come back, it won't be for a good long while, and there would have to be something special happening here to entice us to come back above and beyond what's here now. I don't dislike the planet. I just think that it does everything that it's supposed to do quite well. It's eerie, it's creepy, it's annoying at times, which is part of the atmospheric sort of vibe. Is just all the things outside that apparently are waiting to eat you are making all kinds of noise at all times. And it's time for us to go somewhere else. And also, there's no iron on Masperon. And that's what we need. We need some iron. We're going to set up some auto miners over some iron deposits and see if we can't get better results out of that than we got out of the Promethean deposit that we set up here on Masperon with the auto miner. And we'll go from there. So this is basically, right now, I don't necessarily want to say it, but it's the truth. We're roughing it in again. And like I say, I promise, we're not going to do any more episodes featuring the modifications or re-roughing in of the intake vents, but it's pretty rough. It's coming together. The goal right now is strictly make it fit together in a way that we can live with. That's it. That's the alpha and the omega of the entire process right here. So that's what we're going to do. And we ended up with sort of a flange kind of thing. You'll see it starting to come together now. It's just basically like a ridge that goes around the circumference of this tube that comprises the air intake vent. My mind is kind of torn in terms of whether or not I like the way it turned out. On one hand, it's a simple way to create some visual interest, where otherwise it would have just been some basically flat sheets of blocks coming together at various different angles. On the other hand, I feel like the design that I originally had in my head didn't call for this, and I really liked that design that I had in my head. So there's a bit of a conflict, an internal conflict taking place over whether or not we're going to keep this flange design. But having tried it, it's something that I could see incorporating on other ships where it's part of the design from the beginning and making use of it, again, just to create some visual interest where things would otherwise be kind of flat and potentially dull. I don't like to use the word dull too much. I always have this irrational fear in the back of my mind that someone else is looking at this and thinking, yeah, I really like that, that's great, and then I say it's dull. And they're like, fine, you jerk. I don't want your opinion anyways. But here is, it's 22.5 degree angles being pulled up to meet this flat section. And the one thing that I didn't do especially well with this reworking of the outer section especially in the rear of the outer section where it starts to bend back towards the thruster rings, is working the transition and making use of the angles that were available to me. Normally, if I'm trying to do like a smooth curving transition, it would start off, say, 22.5 degrees, and then it goes 45 degrees, then 22.5 degrees the other way, and then straight. And those are the angles that we're given, those are the angles that we work with in order to create this curve. And how round or how soft the curve is just depends on how long each of those different segments is relative to the others. In this case, I kind of skipped one of those steps. I skipped the 22.5 degree portion right before it straightens out going into the tube. So that's one of the things that I'll be looking to correct when I go back and I do the pass. But I think up to this point, I've done a reasonable job of illustrating the process. And that's really what it's about. Some people, they like the outcome. They like the results, not necessarily so interested in the process. But this whole mini-series has been about the process from the beginning. That's really all that's been about. Now, once we get done with this flange, there's a few more things that I want to do with the tube, and it will help to make things look a little bit more intentional when we get around to putting the backside on. You see that slope, that 22.5 degree slope going down off the right side? That's going to be gone in short order, just because if we left it there, we would have to build the rest of the hull around it, and it would just look very, very odd. So I've specifically gone out of my way to not do a whole lot with that, because I knew ahead of time that we were going to have to adjust it for however the hull ends up looking. It'll make a little bit more sense once we get this flange done, and we can tuck into that exclusively, just focus on that one little spot. But for now, the flange just sort of came together. You can see it's just a little ridge that we're building into things, and it works in a way that allows us to reduce the amount of sections where the transitions are a little bit odd. And we had some of those previously. We've actually still got some a little bit farther up on the hull, where if you look at it, it just kind of pulls at the eye a little bit, but you can sort of understand why it might be there. It's not that big of a deal. But doing it this way, you can see we've actually managed to get rid of a lot of those. Now it's a lot more smooth, with the exception of the flange being there, and we kind of have to decide whether or not we can live with that or whether or not we can do better. And that's, again, one of those things that I'll be doing behind the scenes. We'll take a close look at that, or I'll take a close look at that and see if I can't come up with something a little bit better. Now, as far as this section here goes, all I'm really doing is continuing with the flange, because that's the design, not necessarily because I think it has to come all the way around. We probably, if I had spent the time, probably could have flattened it off across the top and not had that ridge. Again, it'd be one of those things that I'd take a close look at when we come back around and look at everything with a bit of a magnifying glass and make the final decision as to whether or not we're happy with it. But overall, again, it's one of those things where we messed around with it. We learned a few things from it. Whether or not we ever use those things is kind of unimportant to me at this point in time. You can see we're gonna get rid of this sloped area. Oops, accidentally took a chunk out of the tube. We'll get rid of this, and then you can see here we're starting to put it together in a way that it'll all actually merge and look like it was there by design and not just a bunch of individual pieces that were stuck together. And I think that's kind of important. That's an easy way to describe the difference between how I like to build and how a lot of my builds in the past have worked out. Is sometimes you can put things together in a way that looks like it was designed to be that way, and other times you put things together in a way that looks like you had a bunch of ideas for different pieces. And, you know, I haven't really managed the transitions as well as I could have between one piece and the next. And it's just a part of that ongoing learning process of, first of all, identifying when I've created a situation like that, and then being able to figure out ways to correct it in a way that I'm happy with. You can see here right now, it's a very simple pattern that we're duplicating with the 22.5 degree blocks, a very basic, rudimentary pattern. And when we're done, it looks like the back end is all kind of merging together with the tube on the side by design. as opposed to having that long, flat, sloped section coming back and then trying to build around it in a way that doesn't look terrible. The only way I can think to describe it right now. The difficulty that I have with it, the only difficulty that I have with it looking at it right now, is it's just too many large sort of sheets. Like they just look like these really big panels that could be a little bit more refined, I think, if we were to kind of take a close look at it. And if you're wondering why we don't just carry that whole design from the flange forward and sort of redo the tube, is because I really wanted to keep that elliptical, that uniform elliptical shape that we set up the profile for on the tube, more so than I wanted to make things a little bit easier just by extending the flange forward and having that sort of smooth design. So we'll see how it goes towards the end of this whole process. You can see here I'm trying to rework this one little section, and the impossible block, that one right there, that hole, if you look at that and you try and figure what kind of block you would have to have in order to fill that hole and not leave exposed faces from other blocks, is a hell of a block, I'll tell you that much. Ultimately, those are the kinds of things where it's also, I think, really a good idea to understand when we've reached the limits of what we can expect to do reasonably with the tools that we have. And you can see we've left sort of a exposed triangular section. There's nothing to fill that hole with. There's no block that we're given. It's actually part of the cube space occupied by another block. So we just have to leave it there for now. That having been said, the next episode, I promise you, it'll be all about things that are not the air intake vent tube. So if you want to be notified about that episode and future episodes, the easiest way to do that is to subscribe to my channel or follow me on social media. Links for social media are always in the information section below the video. Feel free to leave your comments and feedback. Thanks for watching, guys, and take care.